Hi, this is Nick here at OnlyFabs, and today I got an interesting video with my co-host Thomas, the #1 player from the Netherlands, who's done a lot of tournament grinding.
Yeah, I've done a whole lot of international tournaments online, done a lot of skirmishes, and I've been a familiar set of hands online.
Yeah, but with that regard, COVID's been a blessing for you because you could sync all the time you had.
Yeah, I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to grind a whole lot or even seriously play this game, but then my previous focus died out, partly because of COVID, partly because of mismanagement. Either way, so then I decided to go full in on Flesh and Blood, and because of COVID, a whole lot of things went online, which meant I could do the grind, and from a 200 point back
Yeah,
difference.
Every was on 200 points, and you started at 0, and then you said F it.
Yep, I went for it. I did the skirmishes. I did the tournaments, usually doing like 5 or 6 events a week on average.
Yeah, and now actually you do them live, right? So you're also traveling throughout the Netherlands and Belgium.
Yes, currently with COVID restrictions lifting partly, I'm also traveling a lot. I'm usually every week in Belgium at Brood and Spelen in Sint Niklaas. I sometimes go to Oberen in Hasselt. And now that in the Netherlands to Tabletop Kingdom in Rotterdam or The Hague, go to Kai of Cards, go to Game Force in Eindhoven. Basically, anywhere there's an event, I'm going to. Since I'm still working on that grind, nearly there, 100 points.
100 points left. Okay.
Yeah.
It's nice.
And when it's done, I'll still be doing the in-person events, but I'm done with online.
Yeah, I can imagine. I was my last online event where you were playing Axerinthea. We'll soon start on it. Yeah, it's really nice experience, and keeping your attention staring at the screen versus staring at cards is a whole ton easier. So yeah. that's an issue. But we are here for my wheel technique videos. Getting started, deck building is daunting sometimes. Find a sweet ID. In this case, it was Axerinthea by Christian Gilbert. Then choose your hero. In this case, Dorinthea. And then we use a patented technique, but mostly it's to streamline the deck building process. So let's get started. It's your hero is Dorinthea, and also maybe I think you have now maybe 90% or 95% of your XP is from Dorinthia.
I would say 99% because I've done a few sealed events. I've done a few.
Those sound.
I did 1 or 2 other events where I didn't play Dorinthea because people asked me to. But basically every XP I've gotten is on the back of Dorinthea.
But now comes the spice, right?
Yeah. The spill blood. The spice of life.
Yeah. So the wheel technique, it's just so that we can focus on the game plan. How do you execute this game plan? What equipment is mostly used? What's core to the deck ID? How to execute the game plan and what cards are required always? And then what's the side? How does it shift from meta to meta? So what is your game plan with Axerinthea?
So I basically chose the deck because I was feeling a bit frustrated with the Goat Dorinthea, because in the Dutch meta we have a core players that are very often on Dorinthea. So a lot of players just play the free defense ranks and Sink Blows, Fate Foreseen, and Halves. Those are basically in every deck because they're just fine cards. And a lot play like Unmovable Red or Yellow in the side against stuff like Bravo, Prism, or Dorinthea. And those just kind of kill the Go Tall deck, which was my personal favorite because it builds up momentum. But making the shift from Blitz, where the Go Tall deck is supreme because it just goes, it goes.
9 dominate your skills.
Yeah. In CC, people are just a lot more fine throwing their entire hand in front of a attack, and they're fine because the problem is if they throw their entire hand in front of it, you can't go through it. At a certain point, you have a handful of attack reactions you can do nothing with, and you brick, and that's where you lose the momentum. And momentum swings are very painful for the deck.
So, and then what Axerinthea does better is this, what we wrote down here is the constant pressure with the white damage.
Yeah, that's why I saw the list from Kirsten Gilbert, who impressively won a Road to Nationals in America with it, and having gone 3-2 in the first Dutch Road to Nationals, I was a bit frustrated, thinking I took that list as inspiration. And last Sunday, I tested almost exactly the same list, and had despite not practicing at all before the event, I still win 3-2, but the games I lost were very close because the constant pressure is very frustrating. You always have 2, maybe even 3 attacks. You're spreading out your damage, so blocks are very inefficient for your opponent. Because
unmovables and shunts get more efficient. Yeah, well, actually, you were flowing right to how you execute this game plan with the threatening triple swings, and how this damage spreads out with 5-6-3, which if it's just one Dawnblade hit for 10ish, then a movable or shunt stops a ton of it. Now it's more block inefficient.
Yeah, because with a hand of 4 cards, this is the optimal 4-card hand: Dragonblade red, Hit and Run red, and 2 random blue cards. You attack for 5, attack for 6, and attack for 3 if your opponent does absolutely nothing. And that's a lot of damage. That's 14 damage, and that's something Dorinthea Dawnblade without a counter can't really reproduce, because they have a lot of cards that are either reprise dependent or are just inefficient to use.
Yeah, I was calculating a bit, but actually I was thinking more. We didn't mention it, but if you have a tunic counter and spill blood in Arsenal, this one gets real messy real quick.
Yeah, like that's the dream. The dream turn is driving blade or spoils of war and spill blood, and you go axe for 7, axe for 8, axe for 5,
all dominate,
and all hurting. That's a massive turn, which is very realistic for the deck to do.
Yeah.
And the nice thing is, because it's so realistic, your opponent constantly has to think, am I going to block? And every time they don't block, you're threatening that hit and run to attack a 3rd time.
Yeah. And of course, Command & Conquer, it is essential to the list because it's so threatening for the Arsenal slot for all those combo decks.
CNC isn't essential per se for the list. It's just such a ubiquitously good card against everything. You just put it in, because there are turns where either you don't get to go again, or you have to block with cards from hand to stop something big like a Bravo, a Prism turn, or whatever. And CNC for 6 is just great.
Yeah,
because either it does damage, maybe removes a card, or they block with 2 cards from hand, or maybe with equipment, which is all great.
Yeah, and attacking and defense reaction in Arsenal is actually also amazing. And in Warrior Mirrors, Shunt's skill, right?
Yep. This deck can lose to a warrior that plays a lot of shunts, because
Maybe 3.
maybe 3 at the same time. That's how it is. Because you every turn you want to attack with the axes, you do have some attack actions in there, but those are more like CNC, scar for scar, things that continue threatening damage or have some utility effect.
Mm-hmm.
One other attack action is the Pursuit of Knowledge, which is there because it's a blue,
Mm-hmm.
but also because in the mirror it's a attack action.
And why is that so strong then?
Because when you shunt an attack action, you don't get damage.
Ah, okay. So it's just presenting damage that doesn't. So if you feel like, okay, this guy is going to shunt me, or just doing attacks when you are on 1, and Pursuit of Knowledge suits that.
It's a backup plan.
Yeah.
Like if you're lucky, you get the +1 intelligence, but that's very unlikely.
Yeah. It's not like nourishing in Kasai.
No.
Actually, going. It's mostly the same equipment that Kasai would use. Actually, we sometimes mention Kasai because Thomas and I have also gone back and forth with our ideas about Kasai. He does build it something differently, but in the end, it's the dynamos and braces that get put to extra use if you use a double wielding warrior.
Yeah. In essence, the deck is a adjustment of a Blitz Kasai deck. Because if you look at how the Blitz Kasai decks are made, because I do think if Kasai was an adult hero, running Kasai in this list and replacing the axes with sabers, you lose the spill bloods, but that's fine because you can just replace them with either push forward, which is also fine, or with more second swings.
And you gain cash in. So,
but you gain cash in.
That's a pipe dream, but let's focus on this one.
Yeah. So the equipment is very standard for warrior. Arcanite Skullcap, Brave for Braces, and Tunic are all staples for warrior at this point.
Yeah.
I personally am more of a fan of Courage, but it's probably more because I've played Blitz so much. And seeing now, getting more used to CC, the Courage allows for a more explosive turn, but the constant counter you're getting is just worth more, especially in war, because you can use the counter for the steel blitz.
Yeah. And actually, which you stated earlier, the game plan is to go long because you can grind out with your weapons and go wide, and Felling Dynamos present so much additional blockage, blocking upwards to 8, and that means that it's also likely that a Sprint unit gains you 3 resources over the course of the game.
Yeah, it works amazing because it doesn't seem that much to Dynamo, but in a game plan like this, where you're constantly attacking twice, at least that's the plan. Like, sure, you'll have it after, and it's a card game. But you get so much use out of those Dynamos, and especially against some matchups like Katsu especially. Dynamo, even with the little experience I've had with this deck adjusting to it, I've maybe like 1 or 2 mass triggers against me in like 5 games, which is a big difference because you just block the second swing from Kudachi with the Dynamos, all's done. And it means when you're on lower life, you're also a lot more safe.
Yeah.
And against
and blocking out that those 4 attacks that threaten the Katsu abilities.
In all other things, regardless of the Kodachis, against all other things, it means you can block for 1 and a card from hand, which is almost everything is free. There are some two in there, which can be a bit awkward, but that's how it goes.
It's life.
But being able to block for 4 when you want to or more, because Braces blocks for 2, Skullcap also often blocks for 2.
Yeah.
You can mitigate a lot of damage, and especially against a deck that has been recently popular here, the Boltwin deck or Bolton deck.
Yeah. Especially the combo, not tempo, but the triple Lumia, even playing Whispers of the Oracle and such.
Yeah, but I mean every Bolton deck plays Lumina, but against all these charge effects, you can, because there are only like 6 or 9 attack actions in the deck. You can easily block the cards with charge. They don't get a +1. They have to work with cards from hand, like a Courageous Steel Hand, Razor Reflex, which I don't think any of the decks play Razor Reflex, and the Snapdragon Scalers, or they have the Plunder Run from Arsenal, whatever. But they need other stuff to get the go again. Especially the Raiden deck very much needs to present that extra swing. So this, and regardless of that, being able to block 8, 9, however much damage over the game is massive.
Yeah.
Because games are often won with both players very low on life.
Yeah, that's Flesh and Blood. Yeah.
That's Flesh and Blood. Because you need to take hits, you need to deal hits, and it's very much... and for a lot of heroes, armor is a very finite resource. And for this deck, it's not. You almost always have the 1 point of armor.
And it adds up over the course of the game, right? So it's a reason to play this deck, especially with what we mentioned earlier. If you're shunting, if you get shunted, Valiant Dynamo keeps you out of that shunt rain. Or if it's a Kodachi late game of a Katsu, then Valiant Dynamos can keep you in the game, which is so that's another reason to play Axerinthea over Gotal. But we're not saying that it's better deck. It's just one of the.
It's completely preferenced. I made this choice for this deck based on meta.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting because we'll get to it soon. But what's the chord? All the go against, which we've mentioned earlier. Spoils for being amazing, and actually you mentioned that Glint doesn't feel like if you waste the reprise draw.
With Dawnblade Dorinthea, when you attack with just the Dawnblade and your opponent doesn't block with it, you're sometimes forced to play the Glint just to get going, which is terrible because then they can just play that Fate Foreseen or that Sink Blow they had in hand, just put it in front of it, and then you have to play more cards from hand to even be able to hit, and it's just terrible. Here, you don't care.
You just move to the next hatchet.
You just do it for the go again. Sometimes you get the card draw because, as we mentioned before, if they let one of the axes hit, you're threatening a third one, and that's more damage over the course of more attacks that cost you no cards, or well, 1 card for the go again. But
yeah, and that's another part of the core of the deck, of course. That's the buff card, second swing, sharp steel because it's 0, spill blood because it's amazing and finisher. Standard reprise stuff, out for blood, plusing the next swing or the next deck action card. Iron Song being free. This is all pretty standard warrior stuff, and of course second swing in any dual wielding warrior should be played. But then the interesting part...
The interesting stuff is the side deck.
Yeah,
because the axe build and the dynamos and the tunic facilitate a slow game, very much so. The deck has an option to go into a control deck of its own. It plays a full set of Steel Blade Shunts, red Synclos, and a red and yellow set of Dauntless. Added to that with the CNC, you have basically your own control deck. And you're able to mitigate a lot of damage from the big attacking heroes. Stuff like Prism, stuff like Rhinar, stuff like Bravo, because normally a defense reaction that costs 1 feels very bad against Rhinar because of all the intimidates, but the Tunic allows you to play those for basically no consequence. Can still go bad, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, everything. It's a TCG. So never forget that you can draw stuff in the wrong order, and your enemy not having any defense reaction in hand when you dauntless. But sometimes it makes an immovable unplayable.
Yeah, and that's what this is all about. This is about making your opponents make the wrong choices. Because with everything you're threatening, if they don't block the first axe, you're threatening a third attack. Your dauntless mean that if they don't spend extra cards to block the attack that's coming in right now, they'll take more damage. Those Steel Blade Shunts are amazing to block damage, to keep your game plan going, because at worst, or at minimum, what you want to do is attack with the first axe of Kogan and attack with the second axe. That's your minimum. You need at least 2 cards for that, a hit and run and a yellow card.
Just to pitch.
Just to pitch. That's your bare minimum for the game plan. Which means you can have a lot more cards just to throw in front of stuff. Because with in my experience with the other Dorinthea builds, you want to hold on to your attack reactions and your go against stuff, or at least your sharpened steels, your supremacies. You want to save those up for your own turns. Here, you're completely fine blocking with them because you're able to chip away because it's axes. You're chipping away at a tree, making them spend more cards than they want to, or they're taking damage.
Yeah,
because
it's not so much like with the Gotal Dorinthea who is supreme at 5-card hands. Actually, you think this Dorinthea build can play on the back foot, because normally warriors cannot play really well on the back foot?
No, because I normally a warrior wants like a warrior's feller or driving blade or spools and a blue card because they need to attack twice. It comes pitch because you don't really want to play hit and run in the deck because then you're playing a card just for the go again, and your opponent can just block with a card with a defensive 3, and if you don't have enough attack reactions, you're stopped. You're spending cards to do nothing.
Yeah. Now, how does keeping constant pressure, add up with also being defensive?
It pretty well, because the way I look at it, every turn I want to spend less cards than my opponents, and not that much in terms of pitch, but in terms of stuff going to the graveyard. So I look at it like if I attack if I have a turn where I want to attack with the axes, I want to spend as efficient as possible. So I attack with the axes for 5 or 4, depending on what you get. See what they do. Like if they don't, because 4 is a very neat number. Because if they don't have a defense reaction, they don't use armor, you're chipping away for 1 damage, which means you can get that extra swing in if you have a hit and run in hand. which means if they want to block all your damage at a minimum turn, they need to spend 2 cards for your 1. If you have a hit and run in hand, they need to spend 3 cards to block 3 of your attacks, and you're still getting damage through.
Yeah.
So you're constantly making your opponent spend more cards than you are.
So and then I'm getting excited to play it. So it's you can get rewarded as the Axerinthea player for your opponent not being respectful enough for the first axe, because if it's the hit and run that you have on hand, you get the second swing, but that swing also has go again, and then you get that first axe again back in there because of the Dorinthea hero ability.
Yeah, and that's something we haven't mentioned yet, which I think we kind of glossed over, is Dorinthea's ability gives the weapon that hits can attack another time.
Yeah, 20.
Which is massive. Which means it means if they don't respect the hit and run, you can sneak in a third hit. If they respect the hit and run, they lose cards.
Yeah, that's fine by you. So okay.
Yep. And in cases where you got resources, and for example you have an Iron Song Response in hand, Out for Blood or in hand, if they just use 1 card to block your first axe, you play the Iron Song Response. Usually you're getting the Iron Song Response for full value because they want to block as efficiently as possible.
Yeah.
And you still hit. Or they spend another card, which is also fine. Because that's usually the trouble I personally normally have with Dorinthea is you come in a situation where you have a hand full of reprise cards. Singing Steel Blades, Iron Song Responses, Glints.
That's when you kind of brick if your opponent just say, okay, connect, whatever.
Yeah. And here, the hands where you brick is a lot less. Sure, if you don't find a card with Gogin, that sucks. But that's why there's Sink Belows.
Yeah.
Because the Sink Belows help you dig deeper into your deck to find the Gogin cards. And it doesn't really matter what card with Gogin it is, as long as you have one.
Yeah. I was actually just now thinking I play Sigils in Exciting Blitz, but maybe it should be Sinks, but Ira is a real pain in the ass. In
Ira's. But
you need the Sigils for that, but...
Yeah, because Ira attacks for 2 on the second one. Yeah.
But okay, that's Blitz. You actually kind of sold me on Axerinthea, although I will keep it with Sonata at the moment, just because it's so much fun. But thank you very much for actually taking the time and explaining everything. I'm excited about the build, and hopefully your next iterations will be more competitive against the meta. So always be gracious in defeat and humble in victory, but most importantly, go start building your version of your favorite hero to match your local meta, because if you start deck building, you really get into the best part of Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, and no matter what people say online, you need to, if you're playing locally, build locally.
Yeah, definitely. Because for whatever reason, we don't have a lot of chain, so you can build the best chain killer deck. But if you're not facing any chains...
Yeah, because that's why I adjusted this deck. The deck it had stacks, it had stuff all built to combat chain, and I find laser targeting on a single hero a bad idea unless you know you're gonna, like 60% of the field is gonna be one hero.
Yeah, but that's not the case here currently in the Netherlands, at least not in the last RTN.
But thankfully, we have a very diverse meta.
Yeah.
We've had a lot of heroes. I think we actually had every hero except for Kano in The Hague.
I never saw Nazalia.
I knew there was one. There was one of the Germans. Yeah.
Okay. I was like, Nino didn't bring it. So
Yeah, no, but it was there, and which I think is amazing that we have so many heroes
Yeah.
represented, which means you have to
top 8
take
was
so
7
much.
different heroes. So that was
7.
7. I thought 2 Baldwins, I want to say, but
No, that's top 8. I'm just talking general field.
oh, the general field was very wide. Almost every hero was represented except for Kano. Yeah.
Yeah, which means you need to take a lot more into consideration in your deck building.
Yeah.
Which is a lot more interesting.
It is. So get started on deck building, and thanks for watching.